Why, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Night Call. I think we are on the 5th night. We'll see what we find out tonight. We're running out of time. We've got to figure out who the Angel of Death is. We don't have too much clues. We can kind of assume it's one of the two women. They seem to be the most suspicious so far. But we don't have any guarantees at this very moment. So let's see what we can find out today. Okay, so right now I already see that this guy, he's our last suspect that we haven't gotten to talk to yet. It's the only one we haven't talked to yet. And so we're gonna go and talk to him. We're gonna go pick him up. And the only thing we know about him was that he was within quite a good amount when we were attacked. The passenger getting in your cab barely says hello. He mumbles an address and buries his head in his laptop. He taps away, not saying a word, as you start driving. You have seen passengers like him before. Introverts, silent types, people so absorbed in what they are doing that they don't even notice you. The road flies by. The sound of the passenger's fingers on the keyboard reminds you of the sound of rain hitting the hood of your car. Having a good evening? He grumbles a laconic reply. He dives back into his computer screen. You keep an eye on him. His fingers are flying. You get the impression he's not typing full sentences. The rhythm is too short, halting. Are you a programmer? He lifts his head and looks at you with interest. In a manner of speaking, how did you know? From the way you were typing. He pauses and flashes a tiny smile, very perceptive. He stares back at his computer and types a few lines on the keyboard. He lifts his head all of a sudden. What do you think of the world? He holds his hand up. Sorry, that question came out of nowhere. How do you perceive the world? Did someone create it? A god? Many gods? An alien being? You remain silent for a moment. Well, tell the truth. I used to believe, but I don't anymore. In God, Yahweh, Allah. Allah. The passenger nods, but not anymore. Nope, no more. I understand. Things have been rough for believers lately. I stopped believing long before. He smiles. You hesitate, then say, I'm just not interested. He smiles at you. I get it. I feel the same way. Personally, I believe that all of this, he indicates toward the world around him, is of absolutely no importance. The world doesn't exist. The earth, the moon, the sun, how you felt when you got out of bed this morning, none of that exists. He pauses dramatically, no way to know whether or not it was on purpose. He clicks his tongue and stares at you. You feel uncomfortable. All of this is a simulation. I sincerely believe that. What? A simulation, a program, if you prefer, a machine someone invented, and we are the cogs, the moving parts. He corrects himself. No, not a machine, really. A machine is meant to produce something. I don't think we produce anything. No, I suppose we're more of a scientific experiment, a cryptocurrency mining operation, or maybe even an accident. You know, this guy should really get in touch with the computer chip in your brain guy. They would be great friends by the sounds of it. No more, no less. He pauses and looks at you. How does it feel to learn that the world doesn't exist? That our God is nothing more than a computer program? It's interesting. He raises his voice slightly and seems excited. Right, it's a theory. He smirks. And we'll probably never really know That's why I'm working on this project. He glances at his computer. I'm trying to figure out whether or not we really are in a simulation. We live, we eat, we sleep, we love. But if we deliberately try to put an end to the simulation, we might disappear. He stares intently at you. We are. He snaps his fingers. We are no longer. He seems to love that part of his speech. He's relishing in it. How can I prove it? Well, first I have to find a flaw in the system. Flaw? Yes, if we are a simulation, we are programmed. And the ones who programmed us either made mistakes or tried to save money. So we just have to find the float value, the weak spot, so we can break it. We've got to crash the simulation and die in order to understand our own reality. It's a terrible fate, isn't it? Die to exist. Die to become real. Die to make our existence materialize. He pauses, smiles, stares. How does it feel to learn all of that? Are you angry? Are you disappointed, sad, defeated, ready to commit suicide? I go through all of those phases every day. He sighs. I tell myself the world isn't ready yet, and yet it's our future to discover our reality. He chuckles. You park your taxi in front of the address he gave you. He looks deeply into your eyes. So, how do you feel? I don't know. Excellent answer. A scientist have a cardinal rule: always doubt, always question, and always verify. One day, if an atheist states that Alhalla doesn't exist, that he knows this because there's no scientific proof of his existence, you will know that he does not have a true scientific mind. He looks up at his building. I'm talking and talking and didn't even notice we'd arrived. I thank you kindly for this talk. It's always interesting to bounce ideas off one another to put them to the test. After all, we're waiting to wage war with the person or entity that made us. He pays his fare and gets out. He disappears quickly into his building, his laptop under one arm. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Let's try and get some more money quick. It's a shelter for homeless people. When it gets too cold out, you bring Hervé here. Okay. You immediately recognize the next passenger getting in your taxi. You never watch television, rarely listen to the radio, you don't read the newspaper, and yet you know Francis, polemist, novelist, columnist, politician too, you think. Your passenger distractedly gives you his address. You start driving. Are you bothered by all of these protest marches? His question washes over you. You forgot during the day people were holding protests. I work nights. Ah. He doesn't know how to follow up. A moment goes by before he yelps, Ah, see? There's not much chance they'd come to protest at 3 a.m., eh? It's not really surprising, actually. They want to make change, but only when it's convenient. Not during vacations, not on weekends, not at night. They make fun of us in other countries. France, the land of strikes, the land of protest marches. This country is filled with jackasses, slackers, and simpletons. But they protest nonetheless. What do you mean by that? I mean, they take the bus or the train specifically to protest. Well, yes, they certainly do like to protest. But actually, most of the people on strike just stay at home and don't work. Before you can get the slightest word in edgewise, he starts again. Take the United States, for example. They have no right to strike. It's do or die. Spit flies from his mouth and disappears somewhere on the back seat. And they didn't become the most powerful country in the world by going on strike all the time. He snickers. His notebook appears in his hand and he begins to write. Strike, protest, unrest. Well, businessmen and manufacturers are working around the clock. French people should be ashamed. Take a look in the mirror and decide to change, to do something. They expect too much from life. They want to have their cake and eat it too, and bite off more than they can chew. He catches his breath. Froth begins to form at the corners of his mouth. And meanwhile, the world keeps turning. While the strikers twiddle their thumbs, workers are working. No, struggling to get the job done. That's better. Idiotic protest marches. The Frenchest thing and the stupidest. We have to look the masses in the eye and say, you do not own the streets. You shall not wield them like weapons. And suddenly he raises his eyes and looks at you. They are unfocused and his complexion deeply pale. Are you okay? Your passenger's gaze wanders somewhere behind the windshield. I just remember that I once marched. It just came back to me like an old childhood memory. I can see it clearly, from Versailles to Paris. I can picture the banners, the songs, and the people's faces. There were so many of us. We got up at dawn, thousands of us, and we marched toward the capital. Our pure and wholesome voices rose up. His voice shakes a bit. What were you marching for? It was a cry from the heart of the right of the high-quality religious education while France was being crushed by the weight of socialism. We were being ideologically purged, completely decimated. It was the end of parochial schools. The end of our culture as we knew it. His voice trembles. Did you win? Yes, we won. Your passenger slowly sinks into a strange funk. He remains that way for the rest of the ride until you reach his destination. He sighs contentedly as you pull the taxi up along the sidewalk. Those were the days. It was a great time. The left was running the country. He leans in towards you like he's about to tell you a secret with a smirk on his face. And I mean the real left, eh? He pays and gets out of the car. You can hear him talking to himself as he walks toward the front door of his building. What a lovely night. Good luck to you tomorrow. With all these protest marches, it's going to be a messy one. He's gone before you have the time to remind him you only work nights. You have noticed a newspaper on the back seat. Your last passenger must have left it behind. Or the one before. You grab it and put it away. Could come in handy. You start driving. Let's take our profits and let's actually quick read that newspaper. I'm hoping that they might have some sort of evidence or some sort of a hint in it. Let's see. Yeah, there's nothing major around. I didn't mean to do that. You pull a newspaper out of your glove compartment and start leafing through it. Eventually something grabs your eye. It's a short article mentioning the strike led by a handful of employees of Confiseries du Maurice, a luxury candy brand. The employees demand better wages. The owners, the Groupe Dement, are threatening to relocate their factories abroad. You turn the page and stop. You've read about a third of the newspaper. You stop reading and go back a few pages. You thought you saw something. It's a photo of an important French athlete, a well-known tennis player. He's just been arrested in Switzerland for embezzling millions of euros in image reproduction rights. You sigh. You only have a third left to read. As soon as you get to the page, you stop. Your instinct tells you to look at. It's just a typical minor news item, the kind you seem to read every week. A mosaic of this in the suburbs was spray painted. The photo puts the graffitied insults on full display. You shut the paper. It'll end up in the trash tonight. You remember it's there, otherwise it will spend the rest of its days in your glove compartment. Okay, so there wasn't anything too major in there, although I'm kind of wondering if that graffiti might have led to something. Let's go to an eyewitness thing. Try and figure out some more clues. You park in front of Antini's place and turn off the ignition. You've known him for years, actually since your first day behind the wheel. He was a skinny teenager you picked up late on Sunday nights to take back to his boarding school in the distant suburbs. It was well paid, but depressing. Antini has since become a friend, and he's got intel on one of your suspects, Jonas Pearson. You knock on Ichini's apartment door, and he comes to open it. He's now a muscled, bound giant who towers over you. Come on in. Don't look at the mess. He talks quickly, and his voice is a touch colder than usual. Something's not right. You walk into his pristine apartment. Oh wait, there's a gym towel lying on the designer coffee table. Yeah, total pigsty. He collapses onto the couch. His attitude makes you want to stay standing. You're in deep shit. Huh? That guy you asked me to tail? I know him. Everyone knows him. Jonas? He's famous. He's like your equivalent of... He waves his hand at you. There are no famous taxi drivers. Fine. Well, he's famous. Like, really famous. What's so special about him? He wrote books about simulation theory. You know what that is? You shake your head. You have to imagine our reality as a simulation, that the universe isn't run by God, but by a computer. A computer running software we believe is reality. That's insane. Exactly. Insane, but potentially true. Jonas is trying to figure out if it is, which brings us to what you were looking for. Your friend clears his throat. You glance around and realize this young man must earn more in a day than you could do in a week, if not more. The simulation theory has recently led to the formation of several groups, extreme believers, you might say. Groups that want to test this theory, or rather, who want to prove it's true. But how? By crashing the system. He stands up and starts pacing. Jonas is the leader of one of these groups. You think he could kill? There's not an ounce of doubt in his voice when he says, kill? Yes, no doubt, if it would prove his theory. And Tine leans over to you. Every one of his arm muscles is flexed. I don't really know what you need this information for, but watch your back. Jonas is no altar boy. He's nobody's fool, not your average nerd. He could be dangerous. A few minutes later, you're back behind the wheel of your car. You feel uneasy. All of that is over your head. Simulation, internet. You barely know how to use your phone. Come on. You shake your head and start the cab. You've still got plenty of fish to fry. Okay, that was interesting, to say the least. Let's try and get another taxi job in. The passenger getting into your taxi is drunk. He all but trips as he's getting into the back seat, leaving a piece of his jacket stuck in the door as he slams it 10 times too hard. The whole street must have heard it. He tries to keep calm as he gives you his address. You start driving, but keep an eye on him. You never know. His head lolls, his eyes roll. He rummages through his pockets looking for his phone. In vain. Hey, buddy, tell me, any chance you've seen my phone? No. He looks around. What an idiot. I lost it earlier. Not here, at the bar. He starts mumbling somewhere. His eyes start to look like slits. Or at the bar. He is silent for a minute, trying to remember something. When he starts speaking again, he moans. She's gonna kill me. You turn a corner and he slides toward the door, hitting the window hard. Well, fuck, that hurts. Seriously, man. You okay? Yeah, no. See, my wife, she told me not to come home too late. Made me swear, cross my heart, the whole 9 yards. She just had a baby. He corrects himself. We just had a baby, but, she's the one who carried it. We didn't find it in the street or anything. He smirks as he imagines that scenario. It's the cutest little baby, but I'm so done spending my nights wiping its ass. So when my colleagues invited me out, he hiccups. Well, I said okay. Like I went with them, right? He shakes his head, disgusted. You gotta help me. I have to prepare an alibi. An alibi? He nods, sure of himself. Yeah, an alibi. An explanation for where I was tonight and what I did. so she doesn't beat the shit out of me. He pauses. Dude, I'm serious. You gotta help me. Sorry, but no. I'm a taxi driver, not a screenwriter. Your passenger looks at you out of the corner of his eye, rather surprised. I just need to find some sort of alibi. You see, I'm too toasted to do it on my own. I just need an evening to myself, a calm evening. He nods. An evening without the baby, I mean. So you gotta help me. Okay, fine. Very well. Seriously? He bursts out laughing and attempts to clap his hands together, but misses. Holy shit. Awesome. Okay, first we need to start with... He blinks out and his eyes close. A few seconds later, he struggles to open his eyes. Alibi. Everything alright? Yup, the alibi. We gotta start by answering the main question in this case. He chuckles. I sound like a cop. He shakes his head. The main question in this case is, why didn't I call my wife? That's where we need to begin. What about a work emergency? I work in the movie business for a production company. She'd never buy it. Once again, his eyes start to close. His eyelids look like they weigh a ton. His voice sounds perfectly sincere. 5 years of higher education, a 250-page thesis on a Soviet film director, and now I take care of filming permits for Hollywood mega blockbusters. He sighs. There are no work emergencies. Nothing I do matters. He pauses. He appears to have fallen asleep, but asks, why didn't I call my wife? You didn't have your phone? Yeah, but I lost it after Your passenger opens his eyes and squeals like a child. That's it! That's it! She doesn't know I lost it after putting back a few. You, my friend, are a genius. He claps his hands together. Okay, alright, so how'd I lose my phone? Stolen. He looks at you for a second, then claps his hands together. Yeah, I got my phone stolen. Like I left it on the table at lunch and bam, gone. That's already happened to her, so she can't get on my case about it. He chuckles. Okay, we're good on the phone. But I still need to explain why I didn't call. I mean, she knows I know her number. I'm not sleeping. I swear, I'm thinking. He opens his mouth. A little burp escapes. I gotta explain why I went out with my colleagues and couldn't call her. He opens his eyes and suddenly recognizes the street. Oh fuck, we're almost there. Shit. Quick. I know. Something happened to me at the bar. That way she'll get it that it wasn't my fault, right? That I had no choice. Oh shit, I've got it. He gloats, drooling a bit. I ran into someone I knew in the bar and we had a few drinks. It was crazy, dear, just crazy. But who? A long-lost friend? He's immediately convinced. Perfect, great. I know exactly who to choose. Damien. He shakes his head quickly. No, Damien works in marketing. Daniel. An old college friend. Haven't seen him in years. I think he became a dentomologist. Like the Tick, Spider-Man, Ant-Man. That's it. Dentomologist. My buddy became a dentomologist. You hide your grin. Yeah, I'll tell her I ran into Daniel and that we spent the evening just talking. And that he's a really good friend and all. She'll be down with that. She's always telling me my friends are lushes, but Daniel, he's the real thing. And he's trying to save the endangered species. My wife will totally get into that. So, okay, so we're good. I have my excuse for the phone. I have my excuse for being busy all evening. Now I just need an excuse for staying out so late. That's not enough? No, dude, not at all. I need something more solid, you know? Something that pulls the lie together, man. Lying to your wife is like a magic trick. You can't just saw the lady in half. You have to turn the box around, too. I mean, the lady's gotta think it's funny, like, LOL, hilarious. I'm cut in half and I can still shake my feet. His eyelids drop. I need a strong finale. Something like, well, something, you know? He looks like he's asleep. I know. Suddenly he opens his eyes. I got into a fight with some gangbangers out in the street. They were mugging an old lady. I saw them and chased the muggers away. The old lady insisted I have one last drink with her. An old boozin' biddy. That's why I smell like booze. He lifts a finger and draws a circle above his head. And there you have it. Hear that, man? You hear what a kick-ass screenwriter I'd make? My wife will give me the fucking Palme d'Or for my performance. He imitates the sound of a screaming crowd, and the Palme d'Or is awarded to Carlo Satiri for a lie invented with a super nice taxi driver. He lowers his voice a bit, turning into a TV anchor. This is Carlo's 10th fib this year, but it is without a doubt the finest, near perfection. She'll eat it right up, like child's play. He slaps his thigh. It all begins with the moving opening scene, one that's already reached cult status. The main character's phone is stolen when he leaves it on an outdoor table at a bistro. The kind of terrible mistake most Parisians usually never make. With no way to reach his wife, he would normally have gone straight home. But alas, he was as yet unaware what an amazing encounter the evening would hold. He raises 3 fingers. The kind of encounter you only have 3 times in a lifetime. Daniel. Your passenger puts on a very serious expression. Yeah, you remember him. An old friend who became a dentomologist. Your passenger smirks and seems happy. Oh, how an evening can fly by when you're making up for lost time. When the main character notices this time, it'll already be very late. Too late. He hurries home, but on the way he happens upon an old lady getting mugged. He's not a fighter, but he frightens off the hoodlums. He bursts out laughing. He switches back to his regular voice. You know, my friend, it's really not bad. I think she'll go for it. He bursts out laughing. Plus, this kind of stuff always happens to me. He taps you on the shoulder. You've almost reached the destination. The smug smile on your passenger's face annoys you. You park in front of his place. Don't do this to your wife. She deserves better. He watches you with a smirk on his face. Hilarious, like, it didn't bother you until now. He hands you a bill. Keep the change, buddy. He slaps you on the shoulder and gets out of the taxi. You watch him stagger a bit as he walks away. He disappears into his building. You drive away. Oh, we got paid. Yeah, I'm not going for him again because I didn't find anything else out last time, and I can't afford to be continuing to give this guy free rides. So instead we're going to go to an eyewitness where we can find somebody. Alright, I guess I'm calling them eyewitnesses. They're not really eyewitnesses. You park in front of the Passy Cemetery. You're greeted by large columns and a huge, dark iron door. The door opens and you see your old buddy Marco. Marco, the one who stole your wife. You flash your headlights at him. He waves you over. You get out of your cab and join him. Buddy, I can't believe you found my number. Honestly, how crazy. He fakes enthusiasm and serenity, but his shaking hands betray him. Have you been to the cemetery before? It's stunning. No, Marco. Wait, come in. He turns on his flashlight and you start to wander among the tombstones. The cemetery's clean with straight lines of graves. It's very cold. I'm not gonna lie to you, it freaks me out a little that you want to know stuff about the cult. Especially since last time. I don't know if you remember last time, but I lost my job, man. I lost everything. He freezes and grabs your arm. Man, I swear, I don't want to lose what I've got here. I'm the cemetery watchman. I've got a gorgeous gal. So answer my questions. I look like you asked me to. They're over there. He brings you a few meters further over to a strange tombstone. There's an evergreen growing where the patch of grass would normally be. Something is carved into the bark. You lean over. The flashlight illuminates the name of Zeta Valpo, the 3rd victim. This is where her ashes are buried, along with other members of the Looney Tunes cult. The cult. He glances around like he's heard a suspicious noise. I see them every once in a while. They come to plant flowers and collect old bouquets. They plant flowers. They do it all throughout Paris, actually. I think it's actually pretty cool, even though it's illegal. He comes closer and looks you straight in the eye. I don't really get what you've got against them. Yeah, okay, I'd rather not know. This is another loser plan that's going to get me fired. I can see it coming. He shines his flashlight towards the cemetery entrance. Come on, let's get out of here before the neighbors call the cops. When I do my rounds, half the time they think it's kids coming to spray paint the tombs. You follow Marco through the stones. In the glow of his flashlight, you catch the glimpses of portraits of unassuming faces that ignore you. Once you get to the entrance, Marco turns his light off. Please, oh please, seriously, don't tell anyone I let you in. If my boss has found out, I'll be out on my ass. Please. You shrug. No problem. The wife stealer sighs. You walk away without another word and get into your taxi. Once inside, in the warmth, you take a second to think about the new information you received before driving away. See if there's anybody else. Not really seeing anything of importance. Let's go to another. Let's try and bang out some clues tonight yet. I'm guessing this might be one of the last things we do in this episode, but we'll see. We'll see. See what's going on. You've been studying the outside of the church for a few minutes now. It's fairly recent, square with sharp edges, gray and ugly. This is where the congregation of one of your subjects, Gildeberger, gathered. You get out of your taxi and climb the few steps to the front door. Despite how late it is, it's slightly ajar. You go inside. The nave stretches out before you. There are a few people sitting in the pews, lots of women by themselves. By the look of their clothes and their ages, you're pretty certain they're cleaning women. In just a few minutes, they'll leave to take the bus or metro to clean offices all over Paris. Your eye is drawn to a very primitive and colorful wall painting on your left. It is in front of you stands the altar, and behind it, a man who appears to be the priest. Let's go to the altar. You cross the remaining meters between you and the man. He eventually hears you, turns around, and looks you over. His expression is immediately unpleasant. May I help you? Yes? Sorry to disturb you. No trouble at all. His face says just the opposite. I have a few questions for you. Questions about who or what? About one of your believers. Oh no, I don't think so. He slowly licks his lip and starts talking again. Our doors are open to believers. I simply ask that you not disturb the peacefulness of daybreak. You resist the temptation to punch his brains out. We have a very tight-knit community and our bonds are very strong. He holds one hand to indicate the exit. Like the drop of an axe, he says, I wouldn't want to keep you. Don't make a scene. Don't draw any attention to yourself. You turn around and take a few steps away from the altar. You finally see the faces of the churchgoers. All women. Everyone is eyeing you. You look down. As you leave the church, you don't lose your temper. You concentrate on the floor tiles. You're checkered, black and white. You slam the door shut behind you. Back in your cab, back to breathing normally. You smile as you think about something your boss said. This taxi is your fishbowl. He's right about that. Key in the ignition, motor running, heat on, radio on. You drive away from the church. Darn, guys, we screwed that one up. Oh, screwed it up. I could go straight home, but I'm hoping, especially if I go to the short one, I might be able to make a little bit more cash for the end of it. The passenger who's entered the cab makes you feel immediately uncomfortable. Hard to say why exactly, perhaps the smooth plastic set of his features, or his odd appearance, a mass assortment of mismatched clothes. Good evening, good day. His shrill annotations are offensive to your ear. Tell me, good fellow and driver, would you be so kind as to take me to Rue Persian, number 96? As he speaks, you can almost hear the deeper accents of what seems like a second voice. Sure. You nod slowly and start the car, casting an anxious look in the rearview mirror ever so often. Sorry to bother you and disturb you, but I was wondering if you'd be willing to answer a few short questions and queries. Why not? Thanks for opening up to me and being open-minded too. Good day and good evening. Do you think that building roller coasters is a normal thing to do? The question sends you for a loop. It wasn't at all what you were expecting. What? Apologies, sorry. Perhaps my query and question aren't clear. Let me try again. No, it's fine. I understood the question. It's just that. No, it's a dumb thing to do. So you don't share the enthusiasm and passion in the hearts of other human beings. Other human beings? That's my point of view and perspective. Human beings like to sense their own morality. Oh, the alien. Guys, he's an alien. To be inexorably propelled toward their own death and demise of terrifying contraptions at breakneck speeds. It's a theory. A theory? What's with this guy? Who is he? Good day and good evening. Why have you yet to colonize the satellite you call the moon? He pauses momentarily and you try to connect the dots. Not you personally, of course, but you as a species. Who are you? I'm just like you, no more, no less a human being. He stops, weighing his words carefully before going on. I cried and wept just like you did when Ross and Rachel got married. Are you convinced that I'm one of yours now? Absolutely not. Who are you? Your customer leans in closer. You get a whiff of a strange scent, like a mix of turpentine and peas. Let's just forget it, okay? You nod in agreement. You definitely want to forget it. But one last question and query first. One last question is fine by you. Good day and good evening. Why is your own individual freedom more important to you than that of your species and community as a whole? You examine your passenger closely. You're reluctant to speak. It's as if he were speaking through you. As if you were hypnotized. I'm not sure I understand your question. You do understand my question and query, you simply don't want to answer. You cast a glance into the rearview mirror. The thought of discussing your failed civilization frightens you and alarms you. Did you say civilization? What exactly are you getting at? Suddenly you're unable to speak, as if the words were trapped inside your throat. Your passenger, on the seat behind you, gives a dry smile as if he knew exactly what was going on. Thanks, H. He stops short. He doesn't actually pronounce your name, but you seem to hear what he's thinking. Sorry, I forgot. You didn't want that information and knowledge to get out. You absently pull up to the address he has given you. The passenger hands you the fare and then some. Meeting you and making your acquaintance was a memorable experience. Adieu. He exits the cab. You are still paralyzed, but you don't panic. Your body seems to know what's best. You can sense your muscles relax. A minute later, you let go of the steering wheel. The paralysis has ended. You take a look out the side door window. A quiet Parisian neighborhood, utterly uneventful, not as swanky as the rest of the 16th arrondissement. Your customer has vanished into thin air. You sit there for a moment longer before making up your mind to leave. The sooner you pick up a new passenger, the sooner you'll forget that guy. Well, that was weird. Definitely an alien. And that's the end of our night. So we met Jonas. Jonas was a real interesting dude. Hey, it didn't go too bad this time. We still lost money, but not as much as I feel like we've been losing before. You take a few minutes to update your board with your new clues. Steps in the hallway, they stop in front of your door, then move away. You crack your knuckles and get to work. Okay. So victim 2 is connected to Apolline here. Let's kind of move that over, organize this stuff a little bit. It's really interesting. I still am not. Honestly, they all have enough clues that I could believe it was any of them. We just don't have enough information to point towards a single one yet. With a heavy hand, you wipe your tired face, you slide onto the sofa bed. Blah blah blah, streets passengers. We've heard this all before. He doesn't judge souls. You jump without understanding where the voice is coming from. Outside, Paris is waking up, and you fall asleep. Interesting. So, for a couple nights now, we've kind of heard somebody, like, talking. Outside the door, I think they said something about the bathroom before, and now they're saying he doesn't judge souls. So I would assume that they're talking about this character, but I'm not certain about that either. So we'll have to see where that ends up. But until that next time, good day and good night.